All right, guys, welcome to the MMA Fight Game podcast. We have a special guest today, a true OG of the sport. We have Joseph Benavidez. He is a UFC, WEC legend. He amassed a 28-8 pro record. He has notable wins. If you watch this past weekend's UFC 288 fight, he was name dropped quite a bit with Henry Cejudo, Ian McCall, Miguel Torres, as well as Eddie Weiland. He is living in Las Vegas now, crushing it in the real estate market with Keller Williams. You can reach out to him at Next Move Las Vegas. So if you are truly a fight fan, hook up with Joseph if you're looking to move into Las Vegas in the MMA world. Least you can do is help him out as well, and he'll help you find your dream home as well. Yep. We are also
thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We are also with, first time on the podcast, our new female co-host, Victoria Cramp. She also had just fought over the weekend at Rage in the Cage 22 at the Bill Gray's Iceplex in Rochester, New York. Had fight of the night performance. But Joseph, I truly appreciate the time. You're an OG. Thanks for coming on. How are you?
Thanks, brother. Doing great, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
I'm the business and the previous career and everything, man. So just here trying to figure it out like everyone else, you know.
Amen. You know, I was definitely interested. You know, you were truly an OG. You know, I saw your first fight in the UFC on a very special night with the UFC when jonjones announced to the world that he was legit at UFC 128 in New Jersey. I had actually texted you a picture from that night of you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I texted to you, me, and Uriah Faber from that night and that weekend back in March. You have amassed a 5-2 record in the WEC, a 15-6 record in the UFC. Talk to me about the WEC and the UFC.
Well, the WEC, for those that don't know about the WEC, it was the greatest. I'm so proud to be a part of it. It was basically owned by the UFC, but it was basically the division of small guys, you know, 35 and up. They did go to 55 and 70 for a while, and then there was a crossover. But it was like the small guys owned by the UFC, and then so Zuffa owned it, and then at one point they're just like, we need these guys like on, you know, the biggest platform, and switched everything over. And what was really cool about that too is, even though the 55 was a crossover, a lot of people thought, you know, the 55s and the WC are you know, second tier because there's already the UFC. And we went on to have multiple champions from there. I mean, Ben Henderson, Anthony Pettis went and became champions in there as well. So it was really cool. Donald Cerrone came from the WEC. I mean, we had crazy. So it's all on Fight Pass. Like, go watch it. If you just know a lot of these guys from the UFC, definitely go watch some WEC fights. Even me, when there wasn't a 25 around then, so I fought at 35. You know, I have two fights against Dominic Cruz on there. A bunch of other way bigger guys, Jeff Kern, an old legend. So Hani Yahya I fought, Wagner Fabiano, like just really cool, old kind of nostalgic fights. But the cards were so good because if you watch now, I mean, the best weight class in the world is 135. You know, the best weight classes are the lower weights, and those were just full of those. The whole card was 35 to 55, and it was just nonstop action. A lot of good fights. So yeah, those were the days. We had the blue octagon, the blue canvas, the blue gloves, and a lot of people came from there. Dustin Poirier came from WEC. Yeah, so I mean, the names go on and on. So it was cool, and getting once in the UFC. Obviously it was funny because that's when, I mean, everyone wanted to be in the UFC, even though the WC was the UFC for small guys. And honestly, the best thing about getting into the UFC when it finally happened, like, and everything merged, was not answering questions of like, so that's pretty cool. When are you going to be in the UFC? Because everyone would ask you that, but it's like the UFC does not have 135, but everyone would just be like, when are you getting in the UFC? And it's like, we're the UFC for smaller guys. And then so it's great to just be in the UFC and not have to answer questions.
So what was it like to experience the merger of two companies like the UFC and the WEC? Were there any like differences in contract negotiations or the ability to like have sponsorships and endorsement deals?
No, I mean, you probably actually would get a little more getting in the UFC, just like I was talking about. I mean, it was the premier platform. So once you were there and you knew there were more eyes on it and everything, you know, a lot didn't change. I mean, it was owned by the same company, so it was a very seamless transition to get in as well. Like I said, it was mainly just answering the questions, but it wasn't anything. It was cool. Just, oh, like now I can be on a card. Like my first card, I think I was with jonjones, like you talked about in New Jersey. And it was just like, this is cool because you know, these are other peers that I watch, but I was kind of used to seeing the same old guys at every card, you know, because we'd have a lot of cards and it was, you know, a similar it was pretty common for everyone to be on the same cards year round. So it was cool, like, oh, now I can be on a card with, you know, the Nogueiras or Machida or John Jones or something. So that was really cool, just merging and everyone kind of coming together. And then you realized a lot of these guys were also, you know, fans of the WC, which was cool. So it was great to have some, you know, just more peers, more people to inspire you and push you forward, and you know, to put on good fights on the card, and you know, all that kind of stuff that goes into it. You know, I'm sure we made everyone's bonuses harder to get though, because we put on the best fights.
Absolutely. Now, what like the WEC, you guys were in a smaller arena, right? What was it like walking out in the Prudential Center, like 15 to 18,000 people jam packed, versus like competing in the smaller WEC with less people in attendance?
It was different. I mean, the WC varied. I mean, and UFC varies, you know, like some fight nights, they're still gonna have it, you know, I mean, the Apex is a new thing, but you know, they'll still have it the Hard Rock or the little place at the Cosmo or something small like that. The WC did most of their shows at the Hard Rock cafe and the Palms, which I love that. It was a very intimate setting. Like I actually fought Henry Cejudo there on the Ultimate Fighter finale. And I think I fought a few UFC fights in the smaller arenas too. And they're nice. I mean, the cage is smaller and it's a very intimate setting. You can literally hear everything, but there's also nothing like a big arena. So I had fought in a big arena. I fought in Japan before that in Dream, which is like 50,000 people in Japan fighting in the arena in Osaka. And then I fought in a few arena shows in WC as well. Columbus, Ohio against Miguel Torres. I fought in the Chicago arena against Jeff Curran. So the cage was smaller and the majority of the events were at a more intimate place, but we did have arena shows as well, just depending on the card, just like the UFC does, you know, hey, this card's going to be this, and you know, we're going to put it here at the Hard Rock or wherever they go. But yeah, it was cool. Like I said, it was just really cool. Just everyone that grew up wanting to fight wanted to be in the UFC. It's just really cool walking in, you know, hearing Bruce Buffer announce your name, looking at your gloves and they say UFC and everything. Like all that was the coolest part. But the fight's the fight, you know, you don't even know what's going on half the time. So yeah, but yeah, that's the easiest way I can break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, does what size was the WEC cage? Do you remember? Because back here, you know, we had a heavyweight fight a couple weeks ago where it actually ended in a viral knockout, but you know, the fighter said he got clipped because it was a smaller cage where maybe he could take another foot, another two. He couldn't. Did cage side, depending on where you fought, like arena versus Hard Rock versus maybe somewhere else, affect you in your performances that you actually had to plan for?
No, not really. I mean, you know, for those people that don't know, like usually when the fight's at an arena, they use the bigger cage, which is maybe like 2 foot, wider, like circumference on every side.
Mhm.
And then on the smaller shows, they use Apex shows, they use a smaller cage. I never noticed it, I mean, honestly, because when you're in there, you know the distance anyway. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of figuring it out. So, I mean, it's all kind of relative to what's happening already in the fight right in front of you.
Now, going into the WEC, what was your favorite fight in the WEC, and what was a fight that maybe you wanted but you never got?
My favorite fight that I did,
In the WEC specifically.
well, you know, it would be really hard to not say Miguel Torres. Because that was just a big fight. I mean, when I got in the WEC, Miguel Torres was this like mythical creature, this like 5'11", 135, you know, Mexican that they say would spar like 3 hours straight against like 50 guys coming in and out. He has like 100 fights not on his record. And so when I fought him and I beat him and I submitted him, that was honestly amazing. And it's still kind of like an iconic fight for me, I think, if anyone knew Miguel Torres and the WC at that time. And then even personally, I'll just tell you guys like a small story. So like he won the WC title, you know, maybe 4 years prior to that in New Mexico. And I went to that show and I watched him win the world title. And I was actually, you know, in New Mexico. And this was when I was still a young kid, I had a girlfriend, and like I took a picture of her and Miguel Torres, and he just kind of like looked at me like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? It was a very much like, hey, will you take a picture of my girlfriend? And so here it is. And it's just funny because I look back and then let's like cut to like 4 years later, like I'm literally like ruining the guy, cutting him, submitting him. And I just think it's funny because after that, I never looked at guys that took a picture of me with their girlfriend the same. Like I always thought they were coming after me. Someone would be like, hey, will you take a picture with my girl? I just like look, I'd size them up and be like, is this guy trying to fight me like one day? Because never could he have ever known that some, you know, short Mexican kid at his title fight in New Mexico was gonna beat the crap out of him, you know, 4 years after he was winning that world title on the night. So that was pretty funny. So that was a good fight. But like I'm really proud of like my fight against Jeff Curran, the fight before that, because that was the first fight I feel in my career that I like won that people didn't think I was going to. Like before that, I just won the fights I was supposed to win. But then when I got to Jeff Curran, I was like 10-0 and he was like 34-6 or something crazy, like this journeyman. And I was like, I wasn't supposed to win. It was like supposed to be a hard fight for me. And then like, oh, like he'll be back. He's going to be good in the future, but like, he's not going to get past Curran. So I beat him. And that was always a good fight for me. I love even on the loss of my 5-round title fight against Dominic Cruz. I love that fight in the WC. Watch that fight. Split decision title fight at a weight up against Dominic Cruz. And that's another fight. Like the result wasn't what I wanted, but I was proud of the performance. And then I don't remember really a fight that, I can't recall right now a fight that I didn't get in there that I wanted to get. But I'll get back to you if I think of something.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you also had 20. Now moving forward, you had 21 fights in the UFC, a huge long time staple. Like I said, you know, I don't mean to age you or anything like that, but you're an OG.
Old, man. I'm old.
You're an OG, future UFC Hall of Famer, in my opinion, for sure. What was your favorite city to fight in and the favorite event that you were part of?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, it was honestly always really nice fighting in Las Vegas, to tell you the truth. And, you know, you don't like, it was just cool because I lived here and I could sleep at my house. I could go to my house after the fight. I could drive home. You know, I could wake up and like pet my dog and drink coffee. And then it was like going down the street to like a hard sparring session and coming back home. So that was nice just to already be here and there. And it's obviously the fight capital of the world, you know, so that was great. Fighting in Australia was cool. And Japan was cool just because you also, you know, you want to see the world, and it's cool to fight other places as well. And, you know, I got to stay in Australia, stay in Japan, you know, weeks after. And that's always a nice perk to fight there as well. But I mean, honestly, like we're talking about the cage and the arena, everything. I mean, I just respect and appreciate like every fan that comes out. So that part, the support part, never felt, you know, wavering at all. It was always like, this is great. People are here in the full arena to support me. And there wasn't a lot of, you know, contrast there with any other arena, but it was just cool fighting at home and in cool cities or countries that I always wanted to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your favorite fight that you had in the UFC? Win or loss?
That's a tough one also. I actually kind of like probably like my second Formiga fight was a good fight. I really liked the Darren fight, was good. As far as like feeling really good and looking really good. The Formiga fight, the second one was good because I caught him in the first one in his hometown in Brazil, or in his home country, Brazil. And then he had gotten like a lot better, and it was kind of going to be a tough fight to, you know, it was like, all right, well, let's see how much he improved. And he did improve. I went through some controversy, got cut, bleeding, and I ended up finishing him and getting the bonus in Minnesota. So yeah, that one was good too. Yeah, I mean, that one was really good. I will say one thing, I mean, it's not a question you asked, but I don't know if it's coming, but like my toughest fight ever. And so when you talk about like a favorite fight, something that is really good about fighting is you feel very accomplished after. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's great to win, but it's great to feel accomplished. It's great to know like I just went through fucking hell, and I know I can go through hell. Cause like for me, I'm like, this is going to be the worst 15 minutes or 25 minutes of my life. That's what I prepare for. And then sometimes it's just easy. And you're just like, whoa, I love that I didn't have to go through hell, but like I was willing to, you know what I mean? And that's how I was as a train, is like, I got to be ready for the hardest 15 minutes of my life. And then, but I will say one of the hardest 15 minutes of my life was my second Dustin Ortiz fight.
Okay.
The first one, just as hard, and we did all stand up. This is the toughest guy I've ever fought. I hit him with everything that day, and he didn't go down. So then the second time, I was like, well, he obviously doesn't go down. You know, I kicked him in the head, punched him everywhere. Like, I'm going to grapple him this time. And not that that was a mistake because I won, but that was the hardest I've ever, like, I was done after that fight. And like, sometimes I fight and it's like, oh man, I could have done more. Like I paced myself, or I fought smart. I didn't unload the tank, which sometimes you don't always need to unload the tank because you need to fight smart, right? And you can't just be reckless and like unload the tank. But that fight, I was like, I'm glad the 3 rounds is over, because like I emptied the tank grappling, because it was a grappling war, nonstop scrambling. I mean, some of the best MMA grappling you'll see, like not jiu-jitsu, not wrestling. It was a little of everything, a lot of scrambles. And he's the toughest guy like I've ever fought. He was amazing. And that second fight, when I was like, all right, well, he's not going to get knocked out, I'll just grapple him. That'll be way easier. And I was wrong about that. I felt like I was going to die.
So speaking about like challenging aspects and stuff of the sport, everybody can kind of realize this is obviously a very mental game. Do you feel like your wrestling background and your athletic background coming into being a professional fighter has helped you mentally prepare for huge fights like this, or just being on a stage where everybody can see you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for anyone that's ever wrestled, you need to be mentally strong to wrestle. I mean, it's just the sport of pure discipline, you know, the weight cutting, the practices, the one-on-one, like it's only you know, there's no one else, you know, to back you up or rely on you. So you take on this accountability that you really don't in other sports, right? And that accountability leads to, you know, your mental toughness, your discipline. and, you know, your confidence, your mindset, because, you know, like, hey, it's only me out here. So wrestling's the hardest thing, you know, you can do. Even in MMA, it's the hardest part of it to do, to practice. You know, like if you go to a gym, you'll see everyone there on sparring day, but, you know, 1/3's there on wrestling day. So yeah, that definitely helped me. Just everything, like things I've gone through in my life, you know, help you just to know, like, once again, like everything is just kind of like wavering and here for the second, and just kind of embrace all the good and the bad in your life, and that, you know, everything is just going to kind of pass. Like it's kind of, you know, helps you, like the losses help you with your mental toughness just as much as the confidence does of your wins. You know, like you get confidence when you win, but you really build resilience and stuff when you go through the hard parts. So, you know, it's something to, you know, taking it all in, the wins, the losses, and in not only in competition, in life, like that, I think prepares you mentally, you know, because I think being mentally tough is, you know, really just going from like, you know, to win, to defeat, to everything without like losing like the faith, you know what I mean? And just knowing, like, just having that short memory of just like, if you lose, you're going to do the same thing as you do if you won. Typically you're going to go to try to get better. It's nicer to have more money, but when you win, you go train and try to get better. When you lose, you go train and try to get better. It's a little nicer having a W on your record and some more money, but, you know, like it's just about like, you know, you hear so much about like a lifestyle, just living it, you know, and being better, like yourself. Like you can't control like the win or the loss anyway. You can only control what you do, and you can put in 100% and do everything you can, and then you still only have a chance of winning. And there's no other really sport like that, you know. Like if you're running and you're running at this time, you're probably going to run at that time. This one, some of my fights, I felt the best I ever felt and lost. And some, like I couldn't train for 2 weeks and I go in and have the best fight ever. So, you know, it's just about, you know, knowing you did everything. That's where a lot of your, you know, your confidence and mental toughness and mindset goes, is just knowing, like having that confidence that you did everything you can anyway. And, you know, knowing the result's not going to change you necessarily, I guess.
Yeah.
And do you think that, so a lot of people got into the UFC, like they didn't know about the WEC back in the day. A lot of people, talking to some friends in the business and things, they said they got into the sport because of Conor McGregor, right? If they're aspiring to be a mixed martial artist, is wrestling the best base, like even in high school? So you learn it in high school and then you take it to wherever you take it. Do you agree that that would be the best base for any aspiring martial artist to start right away?
I believe so. Yeah, 100%. Because even a striker is, you know, the world champion or something, like they're only going to get there because they can defend the wrestling, you know what I mean, or something. And a wrestler, skill wise, you know, it's nice to be a striker with defense and not have to get to the wrestling because the fights start on the feet. But being a wrestler, you can control the fight, and you can't be a good striker without defending takedowns, right? And if you're a horrible striker, you can take someone down. So it gives you the ability to control the fight. If we're just talking skill, it's like, hey, I can beat I'm better than this guy on the feet. I can defend the takedowns. Hey, this guy's better than me on the feet. I can take it down. I can take him down. Oh, it's close. I can take him down. Right. But it's more the mentality, I think. And like I was talking about, the discipline and everything you gain going through wrestling, the grind, you could say, about going through wrestling is like no other.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, were you happy? Like you hear a lot of people talk about like compensation with the UFC, like pay with fighters, and like I'm kind of like torn. It's like you hear a few outliers saying things, but then there's a whole bunch of fighters that like stay, and like I'm all about fighters making as much money as they possibly can. Like, did you think you were compensated fair, without getting into it, do you think you were compensated fairly? Do you think you were treated fairly with the UFC as well?
I mean, it's one thing about feeling like you are, and then there's another thing that like you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's facts and numbers that you're not. So you can feel like you are, and I can feel like I was at the time, but you know, there is, you know, everything else that proves that you're not. So that's the most I'll say about that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Just trying to, I just try to wrap my head around like why do people stay, and I mean that kind of makes sense of what
You don't,
said.
what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's kind of
Like,
like
I hate, like, it's you know, when people are say, oh, well, you signed the contract, it's like, what was my other option? Not fight at all. Like if someone, this is saying someone's complaining about, hey, I only got paid this, but you signed the contract. It's like, what was my other option? Look at the percentage of this and that and revenue and this and that. Like we could go forever.
yeah,
Like,
sure.
this is a, like, this is a whole nother story, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the main thing is you're in the UFC. What's the other choice? You know what I mean? Like you're gonna fight, and there's always, you know, a carrot at the end that, you know, like, oh, I can make this much because the opportunity to make more is always there. You know,
Mhm.
so of course you're gonna be like, oh, I'll take this now so I can get this later. And you know, it comes, it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, that's there's not another option when you sign your first contract, even. It's like you're finally in the UFC, the ceiling is so high, right? And it's like, oh, like people are complaining, oh, he signed it, you know, 8-8 or whatever to start. It's like, well, yeah, he was making $1,000 regionally, you know, to fight. Like, of course, he's gonna take 8-8 with the potential of, you know, going on to make more and more and more and more. Because even the way the contracts, you see them and you're like, oh my God, if I win every single fight, every single time, I get the 6-figure contract from the UFC, you know? And it's like, all right, 6 figures means winning 6 fights in a row, or, you know, or whatever. So, you know, um, yeah. But like you said, it's like you're grateful for the opportunity, and it's like it's the best you're gonna do right now.
Yeah. And you know, going back on that point, it's like what are your other options to do? Like you know, that's part of the reason why we started this podcast. And I do a lot of things with the local fighters, even to a degree regionally in the Northeast, you know, trying to get these fighters out here, because it seems like that the UFC uses a lot of fighters, you know, social media following, likes, engagements, and things like that, trying to get these athletes used to speaking, try to get a following, blast them out, try to help them that way. So when they get there, you know, they're able to, you know, talk, they have a following, which should help them, you know, in negotiations. You know, hopefully, like there was an argument one time online, like, well, why are we seeing all these Contender Series athletes on pay-per-views and things like that? You know, they're making 10 and 10 or whatever. I go, the Contender Series is a really good jumping off point, because people watch the Contender Series and they come on and they're known. I mean, there's been a few people that have said, you know, they've represented themselves. One of your former opponents, Dominic Cruz, Sean O'Malley, they got better. It's just I just, you know, I'm definitely like pro business, but I'm also pro fighter, making it as much possible. And it's just a sticky slope that I wish there was some like clarity, like to know, but obviously, you know, being pro fighter is the way to go.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So how was Dana White towards you? Was Dana White always really cordial and nice as he comes off on TV, or no?
Not much interaction, honestly.
Oh, really? He didn't talk to you guys a lot, or?
I mean, here and there, like at fights, like go out there and fight good.
Yeah.
$50,000 if you do, you know, pumping people up. But yeah, he was, yeah.
Yeah. And then, So going back, when you trained, you were on a very notorious team back in the day, Team Alpha Male. Obviously the creme de la creme of training. I mean, you had, your head coach, Raya Faber, Chad Mendez, who I ran into a couple of months, like right at UFC 282. He was just walking out with his wife, and that dude is just a brick shithouse.
Oh
like,
yeah.
He's so nice. Like, he wasn't expected to get seen. And I was like, I said to my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, I go, do you know that? She's like, no. I go, that's Chad Mendez. I go, like, he fought for the title back in the day. He was with you guys, with Team Alpha Male. And I go, he is massive. Like, I'm pretty big myself, but he was bigger. And I mean, maybe not from a height standpoint, but just bulky. I was like, holy shit. So, and Chad was there, Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw as well. Just talk to me about the dynamic of all you stud athletes in one gym, sparring, getting into practice. Did you think being part of with all those guys made you better?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a stupid term that everyone uses. Not stupid. I mean, it's I guess an overused term, like iron sharpens iron. Like, you're going to get better if you're, your first round's Uriah Faber, your second round's Chad Mendez, your next round's TJ Dillashaw. Like, you're fighting the best guys, and there's no easy rounds. And those are just guys that, I mean, there was tougher guys that, maybe didn't, get to the point. Like, MMA is just a very tough, fickle career to make it in. There's so many good fighters, and it's all about just the way the luck and your life is really going, that when you can actually make it happen. But there was so many other hard rounds too that, guys that you don't even mention. So, I mean, man, like, no fight was going to be harder than fighting those three different guys in, 3 different rounds. So, and everyone's pushing each other. A lot of us are the same weight. Then, you get Cody Garbrandt in there joining the team later. And it was just, oh man, it was hell every round. I mean, you're not going to get 5 better rounds than that,
No, not at all. And then you were just kind of like, when you were training for a fight, and you hear these, you get a fresh guy every round, and that had to be brutal, and nothing could have prepared you better than, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump back to the mental aspect of sports, because I come from springboard diving before this. So I was a collegiate
that's
diver
cool.
beforehand. So it was a very big mental aspect to the sport. How did you mentally prepare yourself for like a large fight, like a title fight?
Just everything I kind of talked about before. Like, I feel like the mental preparation is in your actual preparation. And so you would say it's in your confidence, but your confidence comes from your preparation also. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, I mean, some people are blindly confident, which is crazy. And I wish I was like them, but there's a realistic aspect that goes into fighting. Like, eventually, like, if you're not doing the work and preparing, like, yes, there's some luck and some crazy stuff that's going to happen, but it's just like anything else. You kind of get in what you put in. So if you're putting it in, that's where you get the confidence. And like I was just saying, like, you can do all that work and you can go in and it not happen, but it's like you went in with confidence because you did do all the work. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's really where that come from, is I think in your preparation in your past. It's nothing that you just all of a sudden are like, yep, I'm mentally tough now. Like, you have to go through the ups and downs of getting there and not wavering yourself, and have a low, have a high, after your low, know you can get higher. And so, and just the preparation is like going into a fight, like, you have to do every single thing you can just to have a chance at winning. You know what I mean? Just to have a chance. So that's where I got the confidence from, was the work. I mean, obviously the past, the stuff that happens to you is experience, and everyone gains you know, experience as they go. But when you're just starting out, especially, the only way to gain confidence and belief in yourself is knowing that you put in the work and you're prepared, you know, like when you're prepared for anything, you know, a day of work, an interview, a run, you know, a swimming competition, like I'm going to do good because I prepared. I'm like, I'm doing this. I committed. I didn't take any shortcuts, you know, but you know, you go into a test and you're like, I kind of blew it off and I didn't really study that much. Like you're not going to feel very good about it. So it's also about putting in the work, because that's the thing you can control. You can't control the other person, you know, as much as we want to. You can't control him. Even when you're on top of him, controlling him, you can't control him. You're just trying to control him, right? So it's like the only stuff you can control is doing the work anyway. So that was always my, you know, philosophy. And it's like, all right, and you know, everyone's in here and they've been training this long, you know, 2 years longer than me. Well, how am I going to catch up to that if I'm not doing extra? You know what I mean? Like if I've been training half a year and they've been training 2 years, well, when they stop practice, I better jump rope or hit the bag or something. You know what I mean? So it's just like a lot of those little things, because it's the thing you can control that. And once you control those things and realize what you can, that's going to give you the confidence that like, I did everything I could, right?
At what point in your career did you notice that a pro like journey was ahead in your future?
That a pro journey. So funny enough, even on my record, I have like 5 fights that aren't on my record, but it was I grew up in New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, and that's where I started fighting, right? And I've told this story before, but so I was fighting there, and you know, I was 5-0, 6-0, right? I mean, this all actually started too because as a 20-year-old, I became sober after like a really tough like teenage years. So that was the only thing that really got me into like finding this niche and missing the competition, actually getting, you know, up and going, right? So anyway, I had 5 fights in New Mexico, and I was like, to answer your question, I just knew like I can be really good at this. Like I trained with people that were experienced and knew like, dude, like I've trained with this guy or this guy, and like you're really good. And I was in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I was just kind of like, all right, well, I want to take it to the next level. I was actually going to move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Jackson's is. And that was the idea. And I took a trip to California just to visit a friend. And that's when I met Uriah. My friend happened to be working nights. So he would go to work, and I was be like, oh, there has to be like some MMA gyms. I have 5 fights. I'm going to go. Like California has to be a really cool place to go. Looked up gyms. One ended up being Uriah Faber's gym in Sacramento that, you know, I went and called my home, you know, years later. And I went in there, just called around and said, hey, I'm looking to train. Like I'm you know, I guess an amateur, even though I was getting paid. It was just kind of a weird time in MMA. And I said, I have 5 fights. I'm from New Mexico, but I'm looking to like take my career to a next level. And, you know, I want to go in and train. Met Faber. I was the first person in there. It was just him and another guy in there. They were setting up the gym. He asked me to roll, and we just like went at it crazy. And right after the fight, it was basically, he was like, dude, like you need to move here and do everything you can to like make this your career. And I said, all right, well, I thought I was good. So if this guy's telling me I'm good, I'm going to take his advice and move down here. He was already like world champion, king of the cage. And this was WC was just starting. So he was just about to fight for the WC title. Or like that was just about to like explode. So yeah, once he told me that, I was like, all right, I'm right. I'm going to go and try to do this.
Now, I know that you have a story. So I've had a couple of people online that I've talked to. I've talked to Chakatos of the MMA household. Jared Gordon is another one. Recently, Mark Coleman has also been sober. How long have you been sober for?
18 years.
Congratulations. That
Thanks,
is
man.
amazing, amazing work. You
Appreciate
know what? Yeah, when I read that, you know, I used to volunteer back in the day. It's a place called Recovery Fitness that provided physical and social activities for people who are, the only rule is they had to be 48 hours sober. And, when I was, reading your bio and reading a little bit more about you that maybe I didn't know from Joe B, the fighter, I read that, and I want to touch base because I've had another guy on, we're chasing Jared Gordon as well. To have you guys on, is there any like message that if people are fighting or that they need help because they're going through substance abuse, be it drug or alcohol, that you can give that maybe helped you?
It's a hard thing because addiction is tough, and it's like, it's so different for everybody. Like, I feel really lucky that I was like able to quit. And I just know like a lot of people can't, like they want to. And I've met so many people that like everyone maybe wants to. And I was at a point where I wanted to a ton of times before, but I just wasn't able to. So it's really hard to say something like, set your mind to it or do this or something. Like, it's just like some people just can't do it, and it really is taking it one day at a time. But something I tell people that just want to, because it's hard. It's a fine line of being like preachy of this, like, if I can do it, you can do it. Because it's like, that doesn't necessarily hold true. Like, it doesn't mean they can't, maybe, you know what I mean? And it's going to be a struggle for everyone. But something I just tell people that even just want to try or do it, and it's a very simple thing, but I always just say, you know what, like, you'll never regret not doing it. Like, no one ever regrets like not drinking. You know what I mean? No one ever wakes up in the morning and goes, damn, I should have got fucked up last night. I feel really good this morning, but the opposite happens very often. Like, God damn it, I feel like shit today or whatever. Or like, you're never going to regret not doing it. So it's just like, it's a day by day thing. But if like you get to the end of the, if you get to that point and it's just kind of like, it's like working out. Like, no one ever gets done working out and they're like, why did I do that? Or like eating a good meal, like eating like a healthy meal. You're never like, that was the worst. I should have ate, you know what I mean? Or like, I shouldn't have worked out today. I should have sat here longer. Like, it's the same kind of thing. So, if you can just like, it's really, that's the state of mind that I feel is like, it's hard to, like I said, to tell anybody that is an addict, like, don't do it today or whatever. But it's like, if you can kind of be like, well, I'm going to feel better if I don't. And then you just keep feeling better. And then you just keep feeling better. And then maybe you get used to like feeling that way and you don't want to feel another way. And that was kind of just like how it is for me. But I also just feel it's a very like simple, non-intimidating way to maybe, start like the process of just like feeling better and getting out of that. So.
And you keep some money, in your pocket because
Yeah.
It's not cheap. That's for sure, especially in Las Vegas where you're at. I want to touch base. You are married to Megan Levy, who is a UFC broadcast team member. When did you guys meet?
Dude, we met in like 2009, which is crazy. Or 2008 maybe. And people don't like, it's actually a way cooler story. Like, if people think we like met when she interviewed me and like I was somehow the one guy in the UFC that like made her laugh and charmed her, because it makes me look cooler than every single person in the UFC. And I am cooler because I have her, but it was actually like I had like an in like way before she became who she is, and way before, well, I had just fought my second fight in the WC. She was working and she was in graduate school, working in New York as an intern at Fox, competing graduate school at Fordham University, and we met in Las Vegas where we now live. And we met at the Mandalay Bay. I was there on the weekend of a fight. She was there with her friends from college. We started talking, hanging out, and very wholesome night. Like, I gave her my email at the end of the night for some reason, because I thought she was like a professional and I had just got a computer. So it was just, it was just a very wholesome thing. I was like, well, she lives in New York. Like that girl is awesome. And we just kept talking, emailing all the time, bunch of like crazy emails and videos and stuff. And yeah, and you know what was great is our wedding 8 years ago, she actually like Gmail saves all your emails. So she actually printed them out like the morning of our wedding, and she's like, look under the bed. And I took them out and they were just so funny. Like we were both trying so hard. You know, when you like someone and you just are like, oh my God, like you're trying so hard. It was like that, but like neither of us really knew because we liked that the other person was, you know?
Yeah.
So it was just really funny. I was sending her just crazy stuff. But yeah, that's really how it happened. And then she was completing her master's over there, communications and everything with that. And then, yeah, she started doing some stuff, interning there. And when she got a job offer in Vegas, California, and it was about that, it was kind of like that range where like, hey, we can do this. Like, you don't live in New York. Like, I can see you like every few weekends or whatever. So yeah, that's it. But yeah, we met like way before she was on TV. I mean, I'd been on TV a few times, but no.
So you basically one upped her on those going to those emails. Do you have any cringe moments?
Oh, all of it. Oh, all of it. I'm like sending her pictures of like, I mean, well, I remember sending her like Boys to Men videos. There's one specifically, Water Runs Dry.
Oh yeah.
That was filmed like an hour from my home in White Sands, New Mexico. And I remember like sending her the video and being like, I'm gonna take you here one day, like all this stuff. And we did go there.
Awesome.
Great. And we like reenacted like the Water Runs Dry video, like lip syncing it. It was really good. And just like, I mean, everything was cringy. Like, you know, I can't even nail down a specific thing. It's just like it just was, you know what I mean? It was funny, but like tons of just random YouTube videos that were like, oh, I want to make her laugh and let her know like I'm cool and I'm interesting, and you know what I mean? Like all that kind of things, all those kind of things you do when you're like, you know, trying to impress somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how do you guys like manage you know, her being an on-air personality versus like when you're fighting? Like I saw like when you were overseas for Fight Island, there was a picture, you were sitting on a stool. I don't remember which fight it was, but she was kneeling down. How do you guys manage the mental aspect of, you know, seeing your husband in a certain state versus in a win state? How do you manage all that?
Well, I think she is so amazing at it because she kind of has to deal with that on an everyday basis. After she has to talk, like it's weird because what she does with me and what she does with them, like in her job, like helps us all, like having that empathy for someone, like win or loss, and kind of how to engage that. Like she knows how a fighter feels when she has to interview him, like how they feel when they lost and how much.
Guys. All right, there we go. All right, go ahead. Sorry about that. Fat finger problems.
Oh no, I was just saying like, no, like she is such an expert at that, like being married to me, but also that being her job. She's just a natural at it. Like it just, like she needs to basically like make a book on like how to be like a fighter wife, basically. But also like it helps, like she knows how I am when I lose. So she knows not only how the wife feels and to go over there and, you know, comfort them and how the family feels, but how the fighter feels and vice versa. You know, so I mean, it kind of helps because that's kind of what she deals with every day. And she knows, once again, like it's, you know, it's part of the process. Like there's wins and there's losses. And it's just like nothing really changes. Like the love and the care doesn't change when it comes to either of them. You know what I mean? And that is the best thing. Like that's the thing that holds you together when you lose too, because like to me, like your life doesn't change if like you have the people that like love you and support you, right? Like I remember my first ever like loss, like that was like I was going to be undefeated, I was going to do this, I was going to do that, and it was just like it was the hardest thing because that's all like I had, right? And then once I established like a real life in a way and have things I care about like more than fighting and that are more important than fighting and they have more longevity than fighting, it was like, fuck, I lost, that sucks. But it's like, wait, the people, they still love me, you know, like they still care about me, and they care about me like just as much as when I won, you know what I mean? So that is very much like, you know, something that changed me. And it's like, yeah, that is that's just how it is in the fight. So for her, you know, doing that backstage and doing that in real life, I think it is a benefit to both.
Yeah, and going to Tori's question about the mental aspect, did having Megan in the arena or nearby help the mental aspect of the game going to perform and knowing that she was in your corner no matter what?
Yeah. Yeah, you know how like people always like, you know, they win and they're like, yeah, like I was fighting for, you know, just for my kids or my grandma, you know, is sick, or, you know, all the fans that support me. It's like the more support, the more you're inspired, you know, like the love you have is inspiring, the support you have is inspiring. So you're always going out there and, you know, I mean, when you're trying to like, I mean, I guess there's probably a balance of just like, oh, like I'm in my hometown, like everyone's here, I have to like perform. But when you just know you have like genuine support from everyone, like that's gonna push you in those, you know, hard moments in the fight and training and everything, you know, especially someone like having someone like Megan that's like, I know she's out fucking working her ass off right now.
Oh yeah.
She's flying, she's doing this, she's all over the place. Like she's not doing that so I can like take off this round. You know what I mean? So, you know, just to have someone else that works just as hard at what they do and is just as good at what they do, that also inspires you, because you're like, well, I can't be some schlub if I'm married to Megan O'Leary. You know?
Now, is she in Charlotte this weekend?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually driving down there. My parents live down there, so we're gonna go see that card. She's got an early call time this week. I know the fights start at 11:30 on ESPN and ESPN Plus, and then the main card's on ABC at 3. So, so she'll be where Charlotte's a good area. So,
Yeah.
Victoria, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch base with Joe?
Would you say that there was a time in your career where you've had like a mental block before a fight? And if so, how did you work yourself past that?
Not really, honestly. I can't say I did, and it goes back to everything else is like I just, you know, built, I think, a resiliency in my career where nothing was ever too bad and nothing was ever too good. Like, and I think that was the main thing is like, I never like, you know, like celebrated the high too much and like, or the low too much. I was just trying to like, all right, like that was great, everything went as planned, or like that sucks, everything didn't go as planned. So I never got to a place where there was like a mental block. I mean, but maybe, you know, that's also why I retired, because it was like I could maybe feel myself getting there. You know what I mean? To like, and I don't know what you mean necessarily by mental block, but mine came from just like I don't know if I love spending my time doing this anymore, you know, and you know, everyone around it and you know, everyone involved in it, and just kind of like that, like, you know what I mean, like a little bit of like the love loss, where before it was my favorite thing in the world to do, no matter what, like, you know, like no matter what, like I love to go in and spar and do rounds. And I think it just got to a point where it's just like, I have other interests, you know. I think it goes with people like that I've seen before me too, maybe just like go too far, you know, and go too long. And which that's the hard thing about fighting, is the only really way to know you can't fight anymore is like to get beat up. You know, it's not like you're an artist like writing an album and you're just like, you know what? I have a writer's block. I can't think anymore. Like, no, like you're gonna get beat up, and then it's like you shouldn't fight. You got knocked out 5 times in a row. But that's all people know, and they need the money because, you know, either they didn't get paid or they didn't do the right things with it, and they have to keep going. That's all they know. And it's a tough thing, because to be really good at this, I mean, you know, you start when you're a kid and then you have a long career. So, you know, for me, it's like I start combat sports when I'm 16. I retire when I'm 36. So I'm like, for 20 years, all I did was work out and punch people. Like, what the heck am I going to do? And you realize, like, that must be hard, retiring 36 and only, you know, fighting your whole life. Might as well fight again. That's how I'm going to make money. You know what I mean? And, you know, you see that. So to answer your question, like, I don't feel like I had a mental block ever, like competing. You know what I mean? Like, I am a very much like, you know, Mr. Brightside, like looking at things, like even when I get injured, or, you know, I was going in without the best camp because of injuries or just circumstances, I knew just ways to kind of, you know, almost like talk yourself into things being okay, you know, even when they're not. And that's something you kind of have to do in fighting. You'll realize is like, not lie to yourself, but like make the situation okay. Like, I might be injured, but like, oh, my body needed a rest anyway. Okay, yeah, I did it, like whatever, you know. So that's kind of it. So I never had that, but I could probably feel it coming, you know, where I wasn't enjoying it as much. And this isn't a sport, to anybody that does it, like, that you can do without enjoying it, because there's a lot more on the line, you know, than just like, hey, I don't enjoy making music anymore or whatever. Hey, look, I love, but you know what I mean? So I don't enjoy, you know, running for an extended period of time anymore. You know, like, if you don't enjoy this, you're gonna like get seriously hurt. And, you know, so that's it. I could feel I wasn't enjoying it, and I was just like, yeah, don't have to do it anymore. I don't have to do it.
Now, do you still, now being that you're in Las Vegas, do you, I think I saw that you were at Extreme Couture for a little bit. Do you still just go in there to maybe do light pity pad, or do you do anything like training wise just for fun, or because you
No.
want to get something in?
I haven't stepped into an MMA gym in 2 years.
Oh, wow, really?
Like,
What do you,
not even walked in, done anything. No, I mean, I've hit the bag a few times in my garage when I got bored and it was too windy to play pickleball.
is that how
But
you keep in shape now
that's all I
fight?
do. That's all I do every day, play pickleball.
Okay.
That is like, yeah, that kind of like fueled my competitive and like mental stimulation, and like the skill, like technical, because like fighting is, you know, it's chess, it's a science, it's an art. And it's like one thing to like work out to be healthy, you know, but there's not like I was bored running or riding a bike, and
Yeah.
you know, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna try pickleball. Super athletic. This is the easiest sport ever. I'm gonna like kill everybody. And like, I played a few times with wife, friends. I was like, this is the easiest thing I've ever done. And then I went and played at the park, and I got my butt whooped by like some 60-year-old ladies. And it was very like humbling. Like, it reminded me of like jujitsu, when like, you know, just because you're like big and buff, like some kid with glasses is still gonna go choke you out and strangle you to death, you know. And it was just very cool and humbling. I realized like there's so much more to this, so many intricacies. And that's why I love fighting. Like, it was never like a brutal like macho thing. It was like a test of skill. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what keeps me busy now. And like, honestly, I cold turkeyed working out, dude, for like 8 months. It was bad, health wise, mental wise, no socialization. Like, retirement was not easy by any means, you know. Like, once again, like, you do something and you're the best at something for 20 years, and now all of a sudden you don't do that anymore. And you want to do something, but you don't necessarily have that something to do. And it's like, what the heck do I do? So I sat around for a long time, man. And it was tough, like mentally, physically, especially. And I honestly, I like, this sounds like a stupid statement and I say it all the time, but like pickleball saved my life, like straight up. Like I lost 18 pounds, my cholesterol and like all that kind of like heart attack stuff was like, it didn't work out, dude. But I also started socializing and that got me going. And then that got me kind of rolling into like, oh, just I'm a better person. I'm a more well-functioning person. And that got me kind of, rolling at least to get up and do something else too.
Yeah. And let's piggyback off of, you socializing. We appreciate your time today. I want to touch base, post fight career, talking with Jason, and you are now a licensed real estate agent out in Las Vegas with Keller Williams. Your website is nextmovelasvegas.com. Talk to me about that. I know we had some talks offline where a lot of people are moving to Las Vegas. What do you see in the market? Is Las Vegas a good place to move to? How's the housing market? Is now the time to buy a house?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great place to move. I mean, people, Vegas is one of the best cities in the world. Some of the highest growing population, appreciation, everything for people that already own, everything comes to you in Vegas. So the market is pretty strong here. People aren't selling as much because they're locked into good interest rates, but the buyers are there. Because the best thing I would say is just like, you buy it when you can afford it, like it's not about waiting because it might not ever go down to what people want it to. And if it goes up, you're locked in anyway. So it's just, there's buyers and, they're realizing like, hey, we need a place, we need to move to Vegas. This is a better option than renting. So, I mean, buying is up because there is a low inventory and it's getting sold.
Yeah. How long you been a licensed real estate agent for?
Just about the beginning of the year, 2023.
Oh, okay. And you had to pass a test, like much like New York State license where we are, or Nevada or something along the lines. Have you always had it? What's that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. You just pass a national and a state test, and
have you always been into like real estate investing? I thought I saw that somewhere in one of your bios that you had bought properties, sold.
Yeah. I still do. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, that's another reason I honestly was comfortable retiring. When we're talking about not having to fight, I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice. Made a lot of good real estate investments in my career. Still doing that. I mean, I really, use, real estate as a job now is just a means to invest more in myself. But also it's good to kind of, help the younger guys do the same thing and have the experience that I did that I already do and to help them. So yeah, that's, I was always into it. So it's just kind of a natural transition with like, that's what I like. I have a good sphere. And also I have the experience in it, as well. So.
Yeah. And then does Keller Williams have something to help professional athletes like yourself, like in that next hole? I think, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but L.I. Quinta, does he do something in like Long Island for real estate?
Oh my God.
As
Sorry,
well?
Sorry, that's not my style. Ben, come here. What was that?
I said, with Keller Williams, do they have I thought I saw they did a program to help professional athletes transition from the professional sports world into the realm of real estate, kind of get that next career. You being one, L.I. Quinta, I think, is with you guys and obviously in another state, but
no, Al's not with us, and we do have
okay.
sports and entertainment group that helps with athletes not only get licensed, but relocate, as active athletes, whether they get traded, everything. It's a great educational system really for athletes like myself to learn about real estate, learn about that next move, in their career, what it might be after. So with licensing, with investing, with just relocating while they're doing it. So, they're relocating while they're athletes, the investing for post-retirement, but also licensing post-retirement. So it all comes really from an education standpoint.
Yeah.
With us, Ali Quinta, funny enough, he's been a realtor for 10 years. He was a realtor. Yeah, he crushes it. He actually just opened his own brokerage as well.
Awesome.
In Long Island, which is cool. So now he's a broker. But I remember actually doing a segment years ago on a UFC show that was talking about fighters and their day jobs. And this was like 10 or 12 years ago. And we talked about Iaquinta's day job being a realtor. And that was years ago. So then he concentrated on fighting, but he always kept his license. And now he's concentrating on that. Yeah. And then, like I said, with our team, we are kind of like a nationwide team that help with relocation, investing for, post-career, and also licensing post-career, if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, it sounds like Keller Williams definitely has a lot to offer people. If any fight fans who listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube or anything like that have aspirations to go out to Las Vegas, they should definitely go to nextmovelasvegas.com, look it up, get in contact with you about potentially finding their forever home out there. And just real quick, because we truly appreciate your time. Just two quick rapid fire MMA questions.
Okay.
In your opinion, who's the best fighter in MMA right now?
Right now? Maybe Volkanovski.
Who just got announced today that he will be headlining International Fight Week at UFC 290 July 8th out in Sin City.
I would also say Demetrius Johnson. I mean, Demetrius Johnson, he's still probably one of the best, but he's retiring. So yeah, probably like Volk and Demetrius, I think are the best ones.
Yeah. Any can't miss prospects that Victoria and I might not know about that we should put on our radar? Being that, do you still watch? And I'm gonna kind of go off that question. Do you still watch the sport? I know I've seen you in some videos that Megan has been in, just kind of around and things. Do you still watch and enjoy the sport?
I mean, like a little bit of both, like watch it a little bit, enjoy it a little bit. Like I don't watch everything and I don't enjoy everything, but I do watch it sometimes and I enjoy it sometimes.
I gotcha. Any can't miss prospects that we should watch, maybe from your old home and with Uriah Faber at Team Alpha Male or anything along the lines of that?
None come to mind, honestly, right now.
Okay, absolutely. Victoria, is there anything before we let Joe go, because he's been really gracious of his time with us today, anything that you want to close with?
No, I think what you're currently doing with your after your MMA journey, getting into real estate and everything, I think that's a super smart choice. My cousin's currently getting into that. I have my master's degree in business, so
good job.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm an assistant dean for a college of business, so it's nice to know that there are people who have gone through this and they have found their second path for what they plan to do after MMA. I've kind of found my first path, and once college diving ended, I kind of started to get into the MMA and kickboxing journey. And if it takes me pro one day, that'd be fantastic and a great thing to experience. But I know I always have something to fall back on if that doesn't come to fruition. So it's good to know that.
Yeah. All the best to you. Yep. Follow, whatever your heart tells you, do it. And, you never want to have the regrets that you didn't or you did. And you always have time to do more,
Oh, yeah.
And always go back, especially, you already have something going. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to stop the recording and then just kind of debrief and we'll go from there. All right.
Okay.
All right, Joe, I really appreciate your time. Hold on one second.